Hello and welcome to my November TBR. Let me start by saying you might be able to hear my dishwasher going. Life goes on whether you have a TBR to film or not. I have a puppy asleep in my lap and there's not much daylight even though it's late morning where I am. So we're just gonna go with what we've got and talk about what we're gonna read in November. If you're a regular viewer, you might have noticed I did not post a September wrap-up. I'm not gonna post a September wrap-up. Only 2 books really stood out from my reading in September. That was Wide Acre by Philippa Gregory and The Historian by somebody called Kostova? Can't remember her first name, Elizabeth Kostova, maybe? Both of those books were great. They might end up on my favorite reads of the year. They were both super dark and very atmospheric and just what I was in the mood for. And everything else just fell just a little bit flat, except for a reading of the new Sophie Kinsella book, which I got as an ARC a month before it was released. But I actually enjoyed it so much that I have my pre-ordered hard copy, which I was getting anyway. I always get all the Sophie Kinsella books. And I'm rereading it as a palate cleanser in between my Victober reads this month. Yeah, you'll hear about it in my October wrap-up. So those are the only books that really stood out. Let's talk about November. There are 2 major things going on in November that I like to take part of. One is led by Allison Pages, Allie, over at Allison Pages, and that is the Bloomin Rat, or the Bloomin Readathon. She, about 3 years ago, I think, drew this bingo board, and each of the little spots on that bingo board represent a different prompt, and I really like the prompts, and I find them just challenging enough and helpful for reading things that I have just sitting on my shelves. So I am going to use that, but it's also Nonfiction November over at a Book Olive. Olive always hosts the initiative. She refers to it as an initiative, Nonfiction November. And she's got 4 prompts that I don't like, so I'm not really going with the prompts, although I had a whole stack of books already picked out and tried to see if I could make any of them fit. So I'll mention that. But what I like to do in November is to let those 2 sets of prompts guide my reading, but I gamify it and I like to really slow down my reading in November. And so I am going to show you 25 books. Each one fulfills a category on the Bloomin Readathon bingo board. Almost half of them are nonfiction. And then I am going to use this wheel to spin my first 10, I think. I think I'll do 10. My first 10 reads of the month. The wheel will determine which books off of this grid I am going to be reading and the order I will be reading them in. And the thing that's different for me in particular about November is that I want to read 1 book at a time. Normally I have like 9 books at a time going. I have like a couple of audiobooks and a couple of Kindle books, a book by my bed and a book I keep at school and books that I like to read in the evening and books that I read in the morning. And so I usually have, no joke, about 9 books, between 6 and 9, depending on how weighty they are. And so in November, I'm gonna read 1 book at a time. And the wheel will determine the order in which I read and what I read. And I'll just cross my fingers and hope I can get at least 1 bingo on the board before the month is over. When I get to the end of the 10 books that you'll see me read, I will just spin the wheel again and get my next book. But I want to be able to present you with like a TBR, like these are the things that I am definitely going to try to read. And then in my wrap up, I'll do an old school traditional wrap up, not my wrap up game. And you'll get to see the 10 books that I read, what I thought of them, plus any additional, and you know there will be additional. So any additional books that I end up reading through the month off of the 25 that I'm about to show you. So hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, it will as the video unfolds. First, I just want to show you very quickly the books that I will have on the spinning wheel as possibilities and what they represent on the Bloomin Readathon bingo board. So first is a buzzy read, the B space. And so I'm gonna do The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. And I'm not gonna tell you much about the books at this stage in talking to you. I'm just gonna kind of show you what the possibilities are. And then whichever books come up on the wheel, I'll spend just a tiny bit more time on. Next is Meet Me in Another Life by Catriona Silvey, and this is The Cloud Space. It's an emotional book. Of course, I don't know if it's emotional, but I'm guessing it's going to be emotional. Next is The Sun Space, which is a happy book, and I've picked Reasonable Adults by Robin Leffler. Then next is The Moon Space, a book from overseas. And so I've picked Here and Only Here by Christelle Dabos. This is translated from the French, Hildegard something. Translated from the, I think, Hildegard Serrel. Yes, translated from the French by Hildegard Serrel, and this is the latest book by the author of A Winter's Promise, the Winter's Promise series. And then for the nonfiction space, the tree space on the Bloomin Readathon bingo board, I'm going to do Libertarians on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Rose Wilder Lane, and the Making of the Little House books by Christine Woodside. And I think I've given myself a little sticker there that shows which prompt. I think it sticks with the fraud prompt, not because I believe that either of those women were frauds, but because there's been a lot of fuss made in recent years about Laura Ingalls Wilder, who I still adore, and you can come at me if you like. I am going to read for the spider space, or a dark book, dark space, Alexi Harrow's Starling House. For the propagation space, which is an adaptation, I actually have from my library on audio, What Souls Are Made Of, and this is a retelling of Wuthering Heights, or an adaptation of Wuthering Heights. For the variegated space, a rare book, I have another nonfiction. This one I think fits the category of display, as you can see by the little sticker I put on it. And it is a tiny little book. It's called Altered, and altar is like the place you worship, not like change. So Altered, A Tale of Renovating a Medieval Church in Tuscany by Kyle Tackwell Ball. And I think that's a pretty rare book. I don't know anybody else who's ever read it. And then we've got The Cacti Space, a short book or an anthology. And this is also a nonfiction. It fits the web, I think, a web of happiness. This is The Book of Delights, essays by Ross Gay. 2 years ago in the summer, I tried to read this. This was a gift to me from a school that I left, and in leaving, they gave me this, and I haven't really read it yet, so gonna dive into that one maybe. And then for the daffodil space, which stands for non-romantic love, I have another nonfiction. This is one you will have seen. I was trying to read it in September, but I didn't get to it, so I still really want to read it. So I'm adding it to this TBR. I think that it goes with the web prompt for Nonfiction November, and that is The Sisters, the saga of the Mitford family. I still really want to read this. I hope the wheel gives it to me. Then for the snail space, a slow burn, I have another nonfiction. This one is from my library. No, it's not. This one is from Audible. It is actually by a person who I know and worked with, and that is Stephen Alter. He writes really wonderful but slow-paced books, some of them fiction. This one happens to be nonfiction, called Becoming a Mountain, and it is going to be thoughtful and insightful and a slow burn, a snail pace of a read. Then for the White Lily space, which is themes, it's a book that includes themes of death or grief. I am going to read a book that I've ordered it. I've ordered it, but I haven't received it yet. This is a book I tried to listen to from my library before, but I really want a hard copy of it. I think that it will be a better read in hard copy, and I think that it's something that I will use as a resource in the future. So I've ordered a copy of this one, and that is Over My Dead Body. And then for the free space on the Bloomin Readathon bingo board, I have At Home in Mitford by Jane Karen. Or Karan, I don't know how to say her name. I have tried to read this before in the past, but I think I was just not in the right time and place for it. I'm hankering for it now, and so I'm gonna give it another try. For the succulent space, which is a quote unquote hot book, and I'm interpreting that as a book that is very popular, what people want to read it, heard a lot about it, maybe not so much this year, but last year definitely heard a lot about it, and that was Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. I have this on my Kindle and also on audio from my Libby app. And then for the Lotus space, which is disability representation, I have this book, which I'm really looking forward to reading. I also think that it falls under the category of display for Nonfiction November, and that is Truly Madly by Stephen Galloway. Vivian Lee, Laurence Olivier, and the Romance of the Century. How does this fit disability representation? Well, if the wheel gives it to me, I'll tell you. I have this coming from Book Outlet. I just know that I really like to annotate this person's books, so I got a copy of this in the physical. This is for the Ladybug space, which is a simple cover with depth inside. It's also nonfiction, and it fits the web category, the web prompt, and that is Rebecca Solnit's A Paradise Built in Hell. This, I won't tell you about it now. I'll tell you about it if the wheel gives it to me. For the Tulip space, which is romantic love, I have first in a series, which I'm hoping to enjoy. This is Irene Hannon's Hope Harbor. Then for the Green Carnation space, LGBTQ plus representation, I'm going with Brandi Carlisle's memoir Broken Horses, because this is a memoir. I've given it the capital space or the capital prompt from Nonfiction November because she will refer to herself and she is a proper noun. And those are capitalized. See where I'm going there? Then for the fertilizer space, which is soul nourishing, a soul nourishing book, I'm going with another book that I have on audio from the library. This is Nnedi Okorafor's newest, which is Shadow Speaker. This is the author of Binti. I really love her books. And then another one that I was meaning to read in September but didn't get to, but really want to read and hope the wheel gives me right away, is for the Water space, which is an author you're thirsty for more of. That author is Stacy Schiff. This also fits the capital prompt for the same, this also fits the capital prompt, and that is Cleopatra, A Life. Why does this one fit the capital prompt? Because she's Cleopatra with a capital C. Next, I have a book that it hasn't been released yet, but I've pre-ordered it. It's the final book in the Wolf Den series by Elodie Harper. This is the Temple of Fortuna. And that fits the mole space, which has a strong antagonist. If you've read these books, you know this has a very strong and terrible antagonist. For the Dandelion space, which is a book that's been a weed on your TBR. It's not really a weed, but I've put it on 2 TBRs this year, and I really want to get to it, and I just haven't. I have on audio Neville Schutz's A Requiem for a Wren. And then for the Ivy space, a highly rated book, and also, I have to reach far over, and also for Nonfiction November's capital prompt, I have Madly Deeply, The Diaries of Alan Rickman. And for Earth Space, which is a published or set before 1990, I have Anton Debicki's, or Debec, sorry, I don't know how to say his name, but I have One Enchanted Evening by Anton Dubecki? You can correct me. And then finally, for the Root space, I have a reread, and this book is going to get read anyway, but hopefully it just comes up on the wheel on its own. But this is the second to last book in the Winter Street series, and that is Ellen Hildebrand's winter storms. I'll read the last one in December, so I have to read this one. So those are the possibilities. Let's see what the wheel gives us. How exciting will this be? So first we spun the wheel and we got Reasonable Adults. So the first book that I will read in November is Reasonable Adults. And this one says, everything has fallen apart for Kate Rigsby. She's freshly single from an ex she never really liked and freshly fired from a job she never really liked either. Somehow she's reached the age of 31 and the only things she truly cares about are her golden doodle, Aerie, her two best friends, and proving to her parents, and if she's honest to herself, that she made the right choice to move to the city. So when a job at Treetop's Creative Retreat lands in Kate's lap, she's thrilled. 3 months at a glorified arts and crafts workshop for grown-ups that boasts 5-star cuisine and a helipad. And she'll be well paid. The perfect escape. Who cares if her contract spans the depths of winter? Neat, a charming life experience. She can learn to snowshoe. But when Kate arrives at Treetops, nothing is as she imagined. She didn't read the fine print. Her targets are impossible. Her boss is out to get her. And there happens to be an extremely off-limits fellow staffer who has no business being so gorgeous. Part journey of self-discovery, part rom-com, part comedy of errors, Reasonable Adults is a hilarious debut about finding yourself and maybe love along the way. A little summer camp romance never hurt anyone, right? So, Reasonable Adults, a novel. That sounds fun. And it sounds like a great start to November. Gave me the Temple of Fortuna, which doesn't release until closer to the end of the month. So while I will put it on my list and read it when it does arrive, I'm not going to let it sit at second place because I have to read these books in the order that the wheel gave them to me, and that would mean I wouldn't get to read anything else for weeks. So I did 11 spins. So whenever the Temple of Fortuna arrives, it automatically will be read. But in the meantime, I want to keep on spinning. So I spun the wheel again, and it gave me Meet Me in Another Life. So that will be the second book I read in November. Meet Me in Another Life by Catriona Silvey. This one says, Thora and Santi have met before. Two strangers in a foreign city. Thora and Santi meet in a chance encounter. At once, they recognize each other as kindred spirits. Someone who is longing for more in life than the cards they've been dealt. Before their friendship can blossom, though, a tragic accident cuts their story short. They will meet again, but this is only one of the many connections they share. Like satellites trapped in orbit around each other, Thora and Santi will find each other again as husband and wife, teacher and student, caretaker and patient, cynic and believer. In recurring lifetimes, they become friends, partners, lovers, and enemies. Only they can make sure it's not for the last time. As strange patterns and blurred memories compound, Thora and Santi come to a shocking revelation. They must work together to discover the true reason behind their repeating realities before their many lives come to one final end. So I guess it's about reincarnation, which, sure, why not? Sounds fun. Oh, I spun the wheel again and I got What Souls Are Made Of. As I've already said, this is a retelling of Wuthering Heights. I spun the wheel again, and this time it gave me One Enchanted Evening. This one says, London, 1936. Inside the grand ballroom of the exclusive Buckingham Hotel, the rich and powerful rub shoulders with Raymond de Guy and his troupe of talented dancers, there to enchant, captivate, and sweep away everybody's cares. Yet Raymond knows a secret from his past could threaten all he holds dear. Nancy Nettlehorn, new chambermaid at the Buckingham, finds hotel life a struggle and dreams of joining the dancers on the ballroom floor. She soon discovers everyone at the Buckingham has something to hide. The storm clouds of war are gathering, and beneath the glitz and glamour of the ballroom lurks an irresistible world of scandal and secrets. Let's dance. So that sounds like a lot of fun. These first books are just so fun. I'm excited about them. For my fifth read, I got Paradise Made in Hell, and this says, the most startling thing about disasters, according to award-winning author Rebecca Solnit, is not merely that so many people rise to the occasion, but that they do so with joy. That joy reveals an ordinarily unmet yearning for community, purposefulness, and meaningful work that disaster often provides. A Paradise Built in Hell is an investigation of the moments of altruism, resourcefulness, and generosity that arise amid disaster's grief and disruption, and considers their implications for everyday life. It points to a new vision of what society could become, one that is less authoritarian and fearful, more collaborative and local. So I'm going to really enjoy that as my fifth read. My sixth read, very excited, is going to be Truly Madly by Stephen Galloway. And it says, in 1934, a friend brought fledgling actress Vivien Leigh to see Theatre Royal, where she would first lay eyes on Laurence Olivier. That night, Leigh declared he was the man she was going to marry. There was just one problem. She was already married, and so was he. Truly Madly is the biography of this love affair between two of the first global celebrities. Leigh and Olivier seemed to have it all, and yet in their own minds they were doomed, blighted by her long undiagnosed mental illness, which transformed their relationship from the stuff of dreams into a living nightmare. Through new research, including exclusive access to previously unpublished correspondence and interviews with their friends and family, author Stephen Galloway takes readers on a bewitching journey. He brilliantly studies their tempestuous liaison, one that took place against the backdrop of two world wars, the golden age of Hollywood, and the upheavals of the 1960s, as they struggled with loss, love, and the ultimate agony of their parting. Very much looking forward to reading this. That will be followed by Libertarians on the Prairie. Very much looking forward to reading this as well. So this says, generations of children have fallen in love with the pioneer saga of the Ingalls family of Pa, Ma, Laura, and her sisters and their loyal dog, Jack. Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House books have taught millions of Americans about frontier life, giving inspiration to many and becoming icons of our national identity. Yet few realize that this cherished series wandered far from the actual history of the Ingalls family and from what Laura herself understood to be central truths about pioneer life. In this groundbreaking narrative of literary detection, Christine Woodside reveals for the first time the full extent of the collaboration between Laura and her daughter Rose Wilder Lane. This is why I have this. This is what I'm looking for. I want more information about Rose and her impact on the stories themselves. I'm sure I will have a lot to say after reading this. I do know some of the influence that Rose had and some of the agenda that Rose had for her mother's books, but I am curious to know about the collaboration between them. I am curious to know more about Rose. I've tried to read some of her novels in the past, and they are not great. I just want to read a little bit more about how these books came to be. And then I am going to read that. I will follow that up happily with something a little more dark and atmospheric. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. Lola is wondering why there are books in her space. We'll move them, babe. Okay, we'll follow that up with Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, which was a book of the month pick for me last month. This says, Opal is a lot of things. Orphan, high school dropout, full-time cynic, and part-time cashier. But above all, she is determined to find a better life for her younger brother, Jasper. Opal and Jasper, I like those two names. One that gets them out of Eden, Kentucky, a town remarkable for only two things, bad luck and E. Starling, the reclusive 19th century author of The Underland, who disappeared over 100 years ago. All she left behind were dark rumors and her home. Everyone agrees that it's best to ignore the uncanny mansion and its misanthropic heir, Arthur. Almost everyone, anyway. I'm going to stop there. It says more, but I'm going to stop there. So that sounds perfect. A perfect follow-up to two heavy nonfictions. And I'll follow that up with... Winter Storms, which the wheel did give me. And so that is going to be my next one. And this is the third and penultimate book in the Winter Street series. This is about a family and all of the siblings and life. One of them is in prison for insider trading. One of them is a school teacher and is constantly trying to decide who she's in love with. Like, one is married to a French woman and raising a child. Like, it's just slice of life stuff. They all happen around this inn that has in this town that has a lot to do with Christmas. And they're just kind of dramatic, feel-good, soap opera-ish, and I enjoy them. This is a reread for me, and I am excited that the wheel gave that to me because I was going to read it anyway. I got a free choice spin. So I decided to pick from the 25 books, and that is Irene Hannon's Hope Harbor. I think that after reading Winter Storms, I will just be in the mood for another romance. And this one, I know that I want to start this series, but I can't remember. There are 3 series I want to start. And this is one of them, and I can't remember which storyline goes with what. So this says, Tracy Campbell never wanted to leave Hope Harbor, Oregon, or the idyllic 3-generation cranberry farm where she grew up. Now, doesn't that just sound perfect for November? But Life and love altered her plans. Now she's home again with a floundering farm to run, a tragic secret, and a wounded heart. Romance is not on the agenda, nor is it on Michael Hunter's. The visitor from Chicago has daunting secrets and devastating regrets of his own, but when Tracy recruits him to help with a project that is close to her heart, winds of change begin to sweep through Hope Harbor, bringing healing hope and love to countless lives, including their own. This is a Christian romance. I don't think that it is a preachy romance, but it is a Christian romance, and I am hoping that I really enjoy this author's writing because there are many books in this series, and I've enjoyed reading series in 2023 so much that I would like to continue reading series, but I need to find a few new ones that I can really get into. So that's one that I want to try at this point in the year. I've got another one that I'm going to try in December as well, and hope that one or maybe both of them will be two series that I would like to read. All the books have been out for a long time, both of those series, and they're all available used and cheap at Better World Books. So if I get excited about either or both of those series, then I will just add them to my own library as I read them. I'm hoping that I'm going to love them. Anyway, that is it. That is it. Let's just quickly go over the order again. First, it will be Reasonable Adults, followed by Meet Me in Another Life, What Souls Are Made Of, One Enchanted Evening, A Paradise Built in Hell, Truly Madly, Libertarians on the Prairie, Starling House, Winter Storms, and Hope Harbor. So that doesn't give me any bingos yet, but I'm pretty close to a bingo in several spots. So we'll see how that goes. I'm really excited about these and the order in which they will be read. I think the order is so exciting. And tune in for a wrap-up that will happen and see what else I read and how I felt about these books. The rest of the books will all be coming from off of the TBR list that I showed you very briefly in the beginning. And yeah, look forward to seeing you at the wrap-up. Let's go read.